Mr. Speaker, I now yield 1 minute to the distinguished Majority Leader of the House, Mr. Hoyer.
Gentleman from Maryland is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, Chairman Nadler, ranking members, this is an important piece of legislation. How do I know that? Because the people have told us that. Every time they've had the opportunity to vote in America, they have voted to do this. They know that filling our prisons and creating criminal records for people who use marijuana, and knowing full well that if they're people of color, the possibilities of adverse consequences are geometrically greater. And I want to tell my colleagues, I'm tired of hearing this argument that, oh my goodness, we're doing this, we ought to be doing something else. We are all working on the issues of great concern, not only to us, but to the global community. On the war in Ukraine, on the criminal activities that Putin is subjecting us to, on inflation, a critical problem for all of our people. We're working on that. We're having trouble getting some legislation in the Senate that will bring down inflation and bring down the cost for the American people. Not on our side of the aisle. So when I hear this argument, oh, we ought to be doing this, we ought to be doing that, we ought to be doing the other, this is an important, fair piece of legislation, fair for the American people. So I thank Chairman Nadler. I thank the Judiciary Committee. I thank members on my side of the aisle. I thank Barbara Lee, who's walking down the aisle right now, who's worked so hard on this. Why has she worked so hard on it? Because she knows the extraordinary unfairness of the application of existing laws. You don't have to argue that. Just look at the statistics. And you find that to be the case. Chairman Nadler has long been a champion of decriminalizing marijuana and addressing the systemic injustices and inequities resulting from the war on drugs. I was a supporter of the war on drugs. I've been here a long time. I have been, like the gentleman who spoke about this is a gateway drug. It's not a gateway drug. I've been convinced of that. Marijuana has been legalized in 19 states. That's 40% of our states, save one. And the District of Columbia. And medical marijuana is legal in 36 states. So this is not out of the ordinary. This is what the American people tell us they think is the appropriate thing to do. Now, for some in this House, those who are treated with inequality, particularly in this area, you're on your own. You know, make it out for yourself. We're not going to address it because we have other issues. Of course we have other issues, and we pass bills on those. Unfortunately, not with much support from the other side of the aisle. Despite the changes in state laws and social norms around the usage of marijuana, its use remains illegal under federal law. The gentleman who is presiding over the House today comes from a state that has said that's not good policy. Now, that's not some wacko coastal state. It's Colorado. Maybe wacko, but not good. Despite changes in state laws and social norms, as I have said, its use remains illegal under federal law, often resulting in devastating consequences. Hear me, my colleagues, devastating consequences for Black, Latino, and Native communities. Now, I'm not any of those. And I will tell you, a lot of my colleagues, and now when I was in college in the 1800s, it was alcohol. It was alcohol. We were not the generation of drugs. It was alcohol. And it devastated the lives of literally hundreds of thousands of young people. But nobody cried out to make it illegal. They had tried that, of course, in the 20s. According to the Center for American Progress, Black Americans are 4 times more likely than white Americans to be arrested for marijuana possession, even though they use it at similar rates. And the gentleman who spoke says, why are we dealing with this? For the same reason our founders said that we believe in equality, that all men, and they surely would add women today, are created equal and ought to be treated fairly and equally. 4 times more convictions and prosecutions for people of color. That's why we're dealing with this, because it's unfair in America. Those criminal records can haunt people of color and impact the trajectory of their lives and careers indefinitely. And I regret that there are some members of our Congress who apparently think that's not worthy of attention. It can result in difficulty in finding employment, difficulty in finding housing, denial of access to government benefits, denial of financial aid at colleges and universities, and denial of the right to vote. That's why we're dealing with this, because the adverse consequences to people are substantial and negative not only for them but for our country. The legislation before us would remove marijuana from the list of scheduled substances under the Controlled Substances Act, allowing our police department, which we want to fund, by the way, so get off that line that we want to defund the police. Allow our police departments to focus on serious crimes. The legislation before us would remove marijuana from that list. The bill already, by the way, includes a requirement that a study be conducted to understand the societal impacts of decriminalizing marijuana, including the impact on juveniles, education, transportation, veterans, employment, and many others. This bill also expunges the records of individuals convicted of nonviolent, let me repeat that, nonviolent cannabis offenses, and provides resources for job training, reentry services, and youth recreation and mentoring programs. Now, if you take the position that all of these people are on their own and want no help from us or get no help from us, then perhaps you don't care. This bill also addresses the disproportionate economic impact of the war on drugs by providing access to small business grants, opening up the legal marketplace to communities that have been largely excluded. This bill is a matter of justice and equal opportunity. It's about addressing systemic inequities and reforming our criminal justice system so that Americans and America can become a better, stronger, more fair, and more just America. That's why we're spending time on this bill today. I want to thank my friend one more time, Chairman Nadler, for his leadership on this bill. I also want to thank Mr. Neal for helping us get this bill to the floor. I also like to thank Barbara Lee, my dear friend. Barbara Lee and I work and have been working for some years now on how to lift people out of poverty. into the middle class. We talk a lot about the middle class. The way you grow the middle class is let people who aren't in it, so they can contribute to making a better, stronger America. This bill will help that because it will take the stigma away from 4 times as many people of color being stigmatized by our laws. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle, support this bill. The people of Mississippi supported this bill. When they went to the polls and voted, not on this bill, that's not accurate, but on the decriminalization of marijuana, because they knew that it was neither necessary to be criminalized and they knew the adverse impacts. I don't ask you to support something the people of California did or the people of New York or even Maryland. But think about supporting the people of Mississippi who voted on a policy that would make a fairer and more just America. And I yield back the balance of my time.